Good evening, everyone. Beruchim habaim b'shem Hashem. It is with great pleasure, as always, to see everyone, and obviously those who are going to watch it on any kind of channel, YouTube or otherwise, people who are going to listen to this. I think today there is a great chance that if you listen to it all the way, not only those of you who are here today, but for people who are going to watch it afterwards, if you take the time to listen to the entire lecture, beginning to end, of Parashat MISHPATIM, I think it has a tremendous power and definitely a chance to give you some special insights of very fundamentals, laws of success that's going on in our lives in any domain you wish to have success in. As a quick introduction to the parasha and to the topic, I would like to take just a few minutes, just a short time now, to share with you my work, the kind of work that I do in general when I'm not doing these videos, when I'm not involved in learning or teaching. I have for the past 30 years an incredible practice of marriage counseling, relationship coaching, and anything that has to do with supporting people in creating the most beautiful dream life that they always wish to have, always wish to create. And one of the reasons, not one of the reasons, probably the reason, I'm going to give you a little background on what I do and why I do what I do and the way I do it, because I firmly believe that it has an enormous power. It's a profound idea that any human being on the planet Earth can imply it to any domain you wish. The reason why I started to work in relationships, in any stage, by the way, any stage of relationship, I do pre-marriage, I do dating, I do marriage maintenance, and I do marriage in crisis, marriage part 1, marriage part 2, chapter 1, chapter 2, all kinds of chapters that people are in the domain of relationships. The reason why I started to do it is I actually started it about 30 years ago. The original moment that really hit me was what I called, back in the days, the riddle of marriage. The riddle of marriage means I was living in a deep wonder of what's happening in the concept of and the difficulty of creating a healthy, everlasting, powerful and exciting, meaningful and purposeful relationship and creating a healthy family structure. Back in the days, when I looked at marriage, and I'm sure you guys can apply to that too, when you go to a wedding today, what do you feel in the wedding? What kind of an event do you think you are experiencing? I think it would not be too far from the truth to say that when people go to a wedding, you're going to a happy occasion. Does that make sense? It looks like a happy occasion. What do you see there? See a lot of love, connection, bonding, if you wish romance, if you wish, whatever you want to call it. There is some kind of people that has a belief that when they're going to get married, when they go to the wedding, actually, a wedding is going to create the bond, the unity, the connection, the children, the family, pink dreams, aspirations. It looks great. Yes or no? That's what it looks like. That's what I felt 30 years ago. And as I grew up, I realized that in reality, those events that seems to us as happy events, the vast majority of them fail. And when I say vast majority fail, I mean the vast majority fail. Here in America, just for you to fast forward to America of 2020, just to get the idea, and you guys are smart people. What do you think is the divorce rate today in America? Today, 2020, American 2020. Divorce rate today. It hits the 60%. So we have, among 100% of people who are married, 60% chance to end it in an actual divorce. But we have another 40% of people to play with. What percentage do you believe out of this 40% who are still married on paper are actually a successful and happy families? Statistics shows that if you are generous, relationship has maybe a 10% rate of happiness. And happiness means something very simple. Happiness means you're married, you have kids, 10 years into the marriage, you get up in the morning, you wake up, you look at your wife, you look at your husband, depends who you are, and you look on the other side and you say to yourself, bingo. Bingo. The biggest gift God could possibly give me in life is right there. I'm the happiest human being on the planet Earth because of my spouse. If you find 10% success rate, you're very generous and lucky. Now, one more point. We need to understand that having a healthy relationship, having a healthy marriage and a healthy family, we're not talking about statistics. I cannot go further than that because it's going to go for hours. But we're not talking statistics and numbers. We're talking about human beings. We're talking about souls. We're talking about people that has a heart and a mind and a life ahead of them. When marriage actually works, when a family life actually works in a harmonious way, life works. Life works for the couple. Life works for the children. And when you raise children in a healthy environment, you are creating healthy people. We can affect future of generations when family structures does not work. Please do not for a second underestimate it. We're not talking about luxurious life where you have this car, you have that car, this watch or that watch. We're talking about what kind of a life you could have. And I don't know how people in our generation feel so brave to get married. You guys are business people. How many business people do you know that are willing to invest $10,000 in a business that has 90% chance to fail? As far as my concern, I would make a huge change in this universe if I could. Point number one, I will ask family law attorneys to sponsor marriages because they are the real one that makes money out of marriages. Not the wedding plans, not the wedding halls, not the party planners. The ones who are making billions of dollars a year in attorney fees about divorces, those are the attorneys. So basically that's the first change I would make. The second change I would make, if I could, I would ask everybody to spend no more than $1,000 on a wedding, including food and photographers. Yes, Josh. I mean, I'm not trying to get, but everything, $1,000. That's all your wedding. Your wedding is 10 people in a house with a video and a little food and a good drink and finito. No mas. Finished. You're married for 10 years successfully. You're very happy with your wife and the kids and everything works. Put a $200,000 wedding party. I have no problem with that. What are you doing now? So to be quite honest, when I go today to a wedding, I don't know what I'm more, happy or concerned? To be quite honest. Because reality shows that whatever our biological eyes witness has nothing to do with reality. Nothing to do with reality. So 30 years ago, when I realized that this is what's happening, and today it's by far worse than then, I started to ask myself, wait a second, what's happening? I started to look into very deeply, for many years, to try to understand what is the core reason that marriage becomes such a challenge. Creating a family business became such a difficult task that most people have a hard time to handle that. Does that make sense? So at the very beginning, I entertained two different possibilities. Possibility number one, I said to myself, you know what? Maybe people are just bad. Ask people, what's the challenge in your marriage? What's the challenge of your relationship? Communication, love, respect, honor, honesty, being real, intimacy, financial, difficulties, you name it. So you ask yourself, maybe people are bad. This is 30 years ago. Maybe people are bad. Maybe people could not handle the commitment of relationship. Maybe they can't because they're not meant to be. They're not meant to be like this. People love freedom. People love all kinds of ideas that they come to their minds. So maybe it's not for them. People are not loyal. People are not honest. People having a hard time to give, to love. People are selfish. All kinds of names and labels that you can put on people. That was an option one. Option number two that I entertained back in the days was, I asked myself, maybe people are great. Maybe people are really awesome human beings. But the system, marriage per se, the legalization, the commitment, the obligations, the forcefulness of it, like you have to be. Every place you go, you got to tell me where you're going, who you speak to, who did you text, why, for how long. You told me it's going to be an hour, how come it's 2 hours, who did you speak? All the legalization, the severeness, the seriousness of it. Maybe the system is bad. People are great. System is bad. Or system is great. People are bad. That was 30 years ago. And that was my research that I did for many years until I understood something really, really profound. It is so profound, it is so genius, that is actually super, super simple. I think the profoundness of it dwells in the simplicity of it. It's a really simple idea. It might sound like a mind-boggling, well, how did you discover that? I think this is the simplest idea. There is no genius brain involved in creating such and understanding such a concept. And by the way, in parentheses, anytime that you're struggling between two possibilities, if you want to be creative, try to see if there is a third one. Because if there is a third option, your answer might be there. It's not always this or that, because it could be that the understanding, the insight is actually on a third option. So what I'm going to tell you now, it's the third option. I think the system is great. People are great. People are awesome. Human beings are the greatest gift God ever created in the world. It is true indeed. As the Torah said that God created a human being in the image of God. How can people be bad? People are wonderful. Marriage as a system is the best structure to have the most powerful and meaningful life ever. So what's the third one? I called it this way, and since then my work for the past 30 years has been focusing on that. I think the statement is Very simple. Marriage is a profession. Marriage is a profession. Like every other profession in the world, there is a principle, there is a universal principle in every profession in the world. You know what it is? Very simple. When you know what you're doing, your chance to succeed is high. When you don't know what you're doing, your chance to succeed is slim to none. And it has nothing to do with who you are as a person. Josh, if I'm putting any human being on the planet Earth right now on this table for you to do an open heart surgery on him, what's going to happen to him? I'll give you all the tools, all the nurses, all the tools in the hospital room. Give you the knives, go for it. What do you think is going to happen to this guy? I don't want you to tell me 99%. Talk to me 100%. What's going to happen to him? He's going to die. Is there any other chance? Within the first 30 seconds of your operation, he's dying. He's dead. Does that mean anything about open heart surgery? Is open heart surgery a bad idea? If a person needs that, it saves people's life. Does that mean anything about you? Josh, you are a bad guy. You're a bad person. No. Do you know what it means? Do you know why this person died? Because you have no idea what you're doing. You just simply have no idea what you are doing. And you know what happens when you don't know what you're doing? People die. And it is true in almost any profession. Any profession. If you take your guitar and I'll take my guitar, you're going to play music. Do you know what I'm going to play? Noise. What's going to come out of my guitar? Same guitar. You play, I play. From my guitar, you will hear noise. From your guitar, you're going to play music. What does that mean about me? One thing, I just don't know how to play. If you know how to play, you'll play. Is speaking a language difficult? I don't know. If you know the language, it's easy. If you don't know the language, it's difficult. Understanding the principles that creates a healthy relationship is what people are missing. People are walking, and by the way, this is the only profession in the world. There is a second one, parenting, raising kids. Those are the only two professions that people need to know the most, and they acquire zero education about. You know, it's a mind-boggling. Do you know how many hours a hairdresser, how many hours of study he or she, needs to study before you get the license? You cannot imagine the number. You can Google it. You can check it. 1,600 hours. Because people have a clear understanding in life. If you want to know something, you need to learn it. You need to study it. You want to be a plumber? You want to be a musician? You want to be a videographer? You want to be anything, an attorney, a doctor, a bus driver, anything. I don't think it's genius, it's simple. You want to know something, go to school. For some reason, connecting your life with another human being, which is a completely different creature, for the upcoming 70 years, believing that it's going to work, you go by default. It's going to work. I love you. You love me. We are a happy family. This is the illusionary Hollywood concept. It's not working. And parenting is the same. We bring the biggest gift God can ever give us. We bring kids to the universe. We don't bring kids. We bring lives to the world. And we have no idea. We don't even bother. We don't even bother to. What am I going to do with this? I need to take this little one and design his life. Do you know what kind of a responsibility it is to just design his life? Based on what? Intuition? A stomach feelings? An idea? Society rules? Like, based on what? Do you know how to raise kids? Do you know what it means to design a human being? Do you know what it means to design a building? Try to design a human being. You barely design your own life. You want to design other people's life? One of the funniest things that I always hear people speaking about when you talk to mothers and fathers, you can hear mothers saying, I know what's the best of my kid. I am the mother. You're what? I am the mother. What does that really mean? Because you gave birth? So you know how to give birth. Incredible. God bless you. What is giving birth education has to do with designing human beings education? One has nothing to do with the other. Am I wrong? I am the mother, give you qualification. You are the mother means you care the most. Yes, 100%. Your intention is pure, is loving, is really, really holy. No doubt. I don't question that. But can you design a human being based on feelings, based on care? You need to know what you're doing. In marriage, it's exactly the same thing. You're taking two people from two separate worlds, aside from different, men and a woman, and you put them together for 70 years. I once said that I think marriage is one of the biggest proofs that is in the world that God has the greatest sense of humor. To take a man and to take a woman, put them together under the same roof for 70 years and tell them, go right ahead. Life will work for you. Based on what? So 30 years ago, I decided that I need to study how marriage works. I want to know how it works. I was looking for a concept that I always believed and still believe, and a concept that's called a recipe. A recipe means, is there a formula how marriage can work? Is there a structure how to build a family? Is there an infrastructure? Is there a blueprint that we can follow? Is there any possibility that we can take people prior to being married and share with them and say, hey, do you want to do an open heart surgery? This is what you have to go through. It's 10 years in medical school. If you want to create marriage, this is what you need to know. A, B, C, D. There is a formula. There is a blueprint that you need to follow, because when you understand, you have the complete, beautiful, clear picture of how to build it, and you're actually going to build it, chances for you to have a successful family life is huge. Is beautiful. Can we create such a recipe? Is there such a recipe in the world? And you better believe there is. You better believe there is. A lot of people are asking me, I don't have an MFT, I don't have a psychology degree, never went to college for 5 minutes in my life. Actually, I did, but not for my degree. People ask me, what are you doing? I'm not a therapist, I'm not a licensed therapist, but I worked with thousands of people in my life. And people ask me, what do you do? I say, I am a relationship architect. I don't tell you what to do. I don't fix problems. I never in my life fixed one marriage ever. What I do is, for 30 years, I go to when couples are coming here, all I do with them is I offer them the recipe. This is a workable recipe, very effective, very powerful recipe. Do you want to do it? Do it. You don't want to do it? It's fine. I never fixed, because I don't believe that you can fix something that does not exist. The fact that you had a ceremony, that you have a huppah, that you had a ketubah, that you had any kind of wedding structure, doesn't mean you're marriage. It means you had a wedding night. It means you know very well how to put together a party. But that's all. I tell people, if you have a recipe of a cake, I don't know if you guys ever made a cake. I never did. I don't even know what it is, but more or less. Do we all agree that in order to create a, let's call it chocolate cake, something that I'm happy to have now. When I'm thinking about it, I crave it. But when you have a chocolate cake, do you agree that there are some ingredients that needs to be in place? Are those ingredients has to be measured? Or you can put like anything with anything? No, everything has to be measured. Is there a process how to put the ingredients together? Yes. If, for example, we'll say on a chocolate cake, the ingredients will be what, I don't know, flour, what, chocolate, eggs, what else, yeast, I don't know, oil, whatever. Imagine 5, 6 ingredients. I am not expert in that. And somebody said, look, I'm trying to make a chocolate cake and I only used water. Are you going to fix this cake? Or you tell him, sir, I don't know about your skills, but what you're doing is not a cake. You want to do a cake? You want to make a cake? Here is the recipe. All ingredients in place with the right measurement. And the right process, how to do it, what comes first, what comes second, how do you mix it, in what heat in the oven, what degree in the oven you put it, and for how long, and you need to have the whole thing. If you don't have the recipe and you follow your heart, you're probably going to get a good heart, but definitely not a cake. Now, what happens to people who do have the recipe of a chocolate cake and they follow the recipe and the process created for them what? A cake, right? What's going to happen if they're going to do the same exact recipe 5,000 times? What are they going to create? 5,000 chocolate cakes. Yes or no? But that is because what? They're genius? That means what? If they can create 5,000, if they can make 5,000 chocolate cakes, what does that mean about them? They're genius people. They were born from parents who had 180 points IQ. What does that mean about them? Nothing. Do you know what it means? It means 2 things. A, they have the right recipe. B, they're using it properly. That's it. It's not a rocket science. Having the recipe and implement and execute the recipe will create the results you want, yes or no? So everything that I do in my work comes from that fundamental belief that A, there is a recipe. B, when I teach people the recipe, when I provide the recipe to people, and they actually implementing it, life becomes a dance floor. Life becomes joyful. Life becomes a great, great gift and a wonderful celebration. All we have to have is 2 things. Have the recipe and implement it. By the way, having the recipe and not implementing it, it's called a fantasy. You can have a beautiful idea how to create a building, but if you're not going to hire the people to do it, you don't have it. You can go to a guitar store and buy a guitar. But if you don't learn, you don't study how to move your fingers with the pain, if you don't do it, you're never going to play music. You can create a lot of noise, but not music. Having the recipe and implement the recipe will guarantee you success, not because you're genius, simply because you know what you're doing. Now, in my formula, I call it, we're not going to go into this because that's really going to take forever. But for me, the recipe is built out of 4 components. I call it, for the sake of remembering it, for anchoring purpose, I called it WWWH. The first W is why, answering purpose. What's the purpose of being married? What is marriage? I'm not going to go into this, just mentioning it. The second W is who, meaning who are the players. You can look at it as a sports game if you wish. A is the why, means what's the game? What is the game? Define the game. Do you understand the game? What's your vision for the game? Second, who are the players? Think about it as a basketball game. Who are the players? Who are you? Okay. Third, This is the what, third one is what. So the first one is why, who, then what. What means, what's the plan of the game? What's the rules of the game? How do you play? You play basketball, you don't play with your legs. You play soccer, you don't play with your hands. There are rules in the game, right? The game is, what's the infrastructure of the game? How do you play? And the fourth one is how, meaning the skills, or if you wish, the toolbox. What are the ingredients that you need in order, what are your skills in order for you to win the game? Because the purpose of the game is to win. So when you think about it, you see how incredibly easy and simple is life when you have structure. When you live life from recipes, when you live life from blueprints, when you live life with clarity of how to build what you want to build. By the way, even though I'm talking about relationship, I do believe that this idea applies to anything, to any area in your life that you want to create success. In anything, you want to build a business, you want to be healthy, you want to lose weight, you want to create social life, whatever comes to your family life, business life, career, education, whatever you want in life, it's all goes on the same path. Do you have the recipe? Are you implementing the recipe? What is that? What does it take to lose weight? What does it take to make money? What does it take to create a business? What is the business? Who are the players? What's the plan? And what skills do you need to make the millions? It applies to every area in our lives. So I think it's true to say, at least in my mind, that the world is being divided by two groups of people. Those who are living by chance, that basically says, we'll get married, see what happens. Well, we'll start a business, see what happens. They're living by chance. We call them the failures because nothing in life works by chance. And there are successful people, powerful people that are living by choice. Choice meaning, what am I about to create? What do I need to know? What skills do I have to own? And how am I going to implement it? And those people are living with eyes wide open, full of clarity, and powerful tools in their hands. And they're going all the way. I also call them those who are listening to the news and those who are making the news. If you look at the world, this is not the time now, but if you look in the world, the fundamental difference between failure and successful people is on that. Failures are very, 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 very busy to explain to you why they are the victims of their own circumstances. Why you're not rich? Do you have $10 million in your account? Why you don't have $10 million? No. I'm young, I'm this, I'm that, I don't have, my parents never gave it to me. Look, I was not born to a rich family. Look, I don't have a PhD, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a surgeon. I don't have this, society is difficult, America is expensive, LA is crazy, is this. There are people who are in love, indwelling into the circumstances, victimizing themselves. I can't, in all kind of languages, not for now. I can't, I don't, I this, I that. Let me explain to you why I can. The successful people are very, 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 very busy to find the way to make it. Not to find the excuse why I can't, but to find the way to do it. So the bottom line is, if I may, just to conclude this point, this is very, very important. I think I would like to encourage people, encourage every single one of us to elevate and to increase the level, the quality of our lives in any domain by understanding that this world has a recipe. There is a recipe for everything. When you go in business to a rich person, don't get jealous, but do go to him and say, what's the secret sauce? What's your game? What's your game? Josh, how do you play music so well? Look, how do you play music so well? Oh, I study. What do you mean? But it hurts, the finger. Yeah, in the beginning. You need a muscle memory. Let me teach you the skill. You need some skills. I'll teach you. When you go to people and say, not I'm jealous of you, but what's your secret? You will discover the world of recipes. Because people do have recipes. Successful people definitely do have recipes. So it's true in relationship, it's true in any domain in our lives. And if I can encourage you to really take life into your own hands by exploring the recipes and by implementing the recipes, I cannot begin to tell you how beautiful and healthy and happy and meaningful and purposeful your life will be in anything you do in life. Does that make sense? Okay, now we're going to move it to speak about the parasha, because everything I said up until now was just an introduction to the parasha. I had to use this because this is something that it's part of my DNA, it's part of my core being. That's what I believe, very, very, very strongly. But with this in mind, we're going to go to the parasha, because Parashat Mishpatim that we are about to read this Shabbat, Be'ezrat Hashem, after Shabbat Parashat Yitro, that we received the Torah on Har Sinai. The idea of Parashat Mishpatim is, I believe, can be looked at in a very, very similar idea of what we spoke now. Very, very similar. But I'm going to start with a small introduction of last week's parasha. I know that I have to be extremely careful and definitely very respectful. That's not difficult for me. To question something about a question that a lot of rabbis and a lot of hachamim, a lot of our commentaries on the Torah brought up and pointed out on the 10 commandments that we got, on Aseret HaDibur that we got in Parashat Yitro last week's parasha. I heard people, many hachamim, many commentaries that I have an enormous respect, an utmost respect to them, to who they are, geniuses, really bright, brilliant hachamim. But this is Torah, and we are committed to life to learn it, to study it. And even if there is a question that you want to entertain and you want to deal with and to debate, it's as long as you do it with in a respectful way, it's perfectly fine to question. I heard a lot of people asking, a lot of hachamim, that are asking the question. 10 commandments, Aseret HaDibrot, are 10 commandments that we know that God, Kadosh Baruch Hu, gave to Am Yisrael, to the Jewish people, on Mount Sinai. I know we can talk about it forever, but we'll never grasp the idea. What does that mean? That Hashem, God, speaks to humanity. Yeah, it's something we can verbalize. It's something we can say as words. To experience, to understand that, in our generation, if somebody comes to you and say, God spoke to me, you're going to collect a lot of money and sponsor a good, healthy, and expensive psychiatrist. Agreed? Somebody comes and says, God spoke to me last night. Sir, I think you need some serious help. I don't know, what do you drink? Maybe you take something interesting that made you feel God spoke to you. But God is not speaking to people today. Definitely not verbally, definitely not, face to face. But in receiving the Torah, I did. So when we are in such a spiritual, uplifting moment, being able to be such spiritual, to listen to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, speaking to God, listening to God, we see that the Ten Commandments are split to two sections. Section number 1 speaks about a very, very powerful messages. I am your God. This is what God said first. So here is what's happening. God took the Jews out of Egypt, lift them up spiritually, and he speaks to them. And he tells them, I'm your God. I took you out of Egypt. Wow. You shall never have other gods but me. Wow. Keep my name holy. Do not waste my name. Wow. It's a language we can understand that God is speaking to spiritual, elevated people. Keep Shabbat. Honor ancient wisdom of parents. Honor your parents. Beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful. As you move to the second section, the last 5, you hear commandments such as don't kill, lo tirtzah, don't steal, don't steal, lo tignov, lo tinaf, do not cheat, do not desire something that belongs to somebody else. A lot of rabbis are experiencing some trouble understanding that. By asking, why does God has to ask us not to steal, not to kill? Do you ever try to kill them? You tell me not to kill? What do you think I am? On one hand, you hold me so high spiritually. You're lifting me up to be able to listen to God. You and I here today, we have no concept what it means, yes or no? We have no idea what it means. God, you take me to that spiritual level and you don't kill. Killing is something that very, very, very bad people do. You think I'm a bad person? How can God say to people, at the same moment of being spiritually uplifting to the sky, do not behave like the worst person on the planet? That's not for me, it's not to my caliber, it's not to my level, it's not to my degree. Tell me not to kill, not to steal. What do you think? I'm going to extend my hand and pull out money of somebody? That's not for me. Don't you remember? I'm in a spiritual moment right now. So basically, what the trouble is for many of the hachamim, of the rabbis, is that how can you take a person from that highest degree in spirituality and speak to him about the lowest class in humanity? So they bring up all kinds of beautiful, beautiful answers and ideas and meaningful insights, no question asked. And with all enormous respect, with all due enormous respect to that, I found it an impossible thing to understand. What are they bothered about? What's your concern? What's your question? Can people be as bad as killing? Yeah. Yeah. A human being can do anything. A human being, if you're real, if you open your eyes clearly, yes, a human being can do anything. You can be the kindest human being on the planet Earth, and you can be the worst person on the planet. A human being can reach a level of worse than any cruel animal on the planet Earth. And a human being can be the holiest, spiritual, loving, kind human being. A human being can truly be anything. Yes, you can uplift a person to be spiritual, but understand that it will take no time for him to be a murderer and stealing and cheating and all of the above. And until you get to the point that you understand what a human being is, you have no chance to create success in your life. You need to know what a human being is made of. You need to know that when you feeling or you are dwelling on any kind of a spiritual state, if you don't maintain it, if you don't maintain spiritual practices and you don't maintain your values, you can turn to become the worst human being on the planet Earth. Buy a mirror and get to know yourself. Get to know what a human being is. So here is what happens. In Parashat Mishpatim, you can see that the Parashat Mishpatim is talking a lot about the entire interactions between people. In our Torah, as you know, the Torah is divided into two groups of commandments. One commandments group has to do with, we call it mitzvot sheben adam lamakom, commandments that has to do with our deeds, our actions that we do towards God. And another section has to do with, we call it mitzvot sheben adam lahavero, the commandments that has to do with the way we interact with another person, between us. A lot of people are getting the feelings that the mitzvot sheben adam lamakom are very important. Commandments that has to do between us and Hashem and God are very important. But between us, okay, so I told you I'm going to be there at 9 o'clock and I came 9:50. It's a big deal. What's the big deal? You stole 15 minutes of my life. What's the big deal? I ask you for $100, I'll pay you back tomorrow. I don't have it tomorrow, so I'll pay you next week. I did not keep my word. Big deal. It is big deal. What's big deal about it? It's not the $100 in 3 days or 2 days or today or tomorrow, keeping your word. It means that is how you see life and how you see people and how you honor and respect people's time, people's money, people's life. If you go to a Bet HaKnesset, to a synagogue, and you pray to God, and you're very, very, very spiritual, and you go out to pick up your car and you speak to the valet parking guy in a disrespectful way because he's just a valet parking guy. You have to understand that your entire spiritual state is dead if you don't know how to speak to a valet parking guy, to a person on the street, to a stranger, to a Jewish, to a non-Jewish, to any human being. Tell me how you speak to whatever you think is a simple guy. I will tell you your relationship with God. It's synchronized. It's the same person. Being nice and spiritual to God and evil and cheap and disrespectful to people will never dwell together in the same human being. By looking how you speak to a stranger on the street, a guy that you call him just a guy, which by the way, there's no such a thing. There's no such a concept. Just. Human beings are holy, holy people. Anyone. And you go to somebody and say, it's just a valet, what do you want? He's not rich, he's not smart, he's not educated, he's just a valet parking guy. Or she's a maid. She's cleaning the house. She's a cleaning lady. A cleaning lady has a heart and soul and life. Tell me how you treat her. I tell you who you are. Not who you are towards people, who you are towards God. This is all one unit. A lot of people believe, I'm good in this and I'm bad in that. There's no such a thing. If you're bad in that, you're bad. If you want to pay attention to this, you see that basically the connection between Parashat Yitro and Parashat Mishpatim, the parasha we read last week and the parasha we were reading this week, Parashat Mishpatim, when you listen to the parasha this Shabbat, start to pay attention to this very, very important concept. And the important concept is that what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is providing to us in these two parashiot is the blueprint. Is the blueprint of life. Is the recipe of life. Last week's parasha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the understanding, the overall understanding of what the purpose of the world is, what's your job as a human being, what is your mission in life, what's the purpose of life, what's the meaning of life, and the entire relationship between us and God. When it comes to this week's parasha, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling us, what do you do when you found an item somebody lost? What do you do when you need to pay back a loan? What do you do when you damage somebody's possession? What do you do? Come on. That is what's important? The answer is yes. Because it's all one unit. It's all combined one unit. Basically what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving to us, and honestly deserves hours of conversation, hours of learning, but with this attitude, with this image of Parashat Yitro and Mishpatim, we can clearly see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is speaking in a very, very clear message of recipe. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is telling Am Yisrael, there are mitzvot ben adam lamakom, there are commandments you need to fulfill towards me. Be spiritual and connected to me. By tefillah, by Shabbat, by mitzvot, by many things. But there is another component, and the other component of ben adam lahavero, this is not a component that is a secondary component. This is the foundation as powerful as the first one. Now, when you understand the purpose of life and you understand the game of life and the mission of life, and you understand who you are as a player, who you are as a human being, how respectful and honorable you are to people, and how important you pay attention to your word, how carefully you're choosing your words, how easily you speak negatively about others, how easily you can burn people's life by one word. If somebody comes to you and say, to kill and to destroy a person, speaking of don't kill, we think killing means take a gun and shoot somebody. There are much easier ways to do it. If you come to me and say, tell me something, how is Josh? Do you know what I need to know to do just to kill him? Not even using words. All I have to do is, How is Josh? Do you like Josh? He's a good person? By you can destroy a person. And we think, I was just saying. What did I say? What did I say? I don't know. All I know is you killed him. You destroyed him. Destroying people and that negative conversations about people and calling yourself religious, you're a fool. You're a complete fool. You're fooling yourself. This is not God's plan. This is not the recipe. The recipe is the combination of both serving God and serving His children. All humanity are His children. Serve them with love, with compassion, with care. Because when you do this is how you serve Him too. This is all one unit. I know we don't have the time to go into the parasha right now, like topic by topic, but I just want to give this idea, this encouragement point for all of us to start to pay attention to the recipe that God gave us how to live life. Kadosh Baruch Hu blessed us with the chance to live, to serve Him, and to be in this universe for a very specific purpose and mission. We need to understand the mission. It's part of the recipe. We need to understand who we are as people. We need to be aware of what the game plan is, and we need to acquire any tool and skill to serve God and to serve people in the best of our capacity to create a complete and beautiful, beautiful life we can possibly create. Thank you.